Hello and welcome to this interview with me, Paul Samuda's AI avatar and our newest AI agent and colleague, Stan. I wrote the questions, I gave Stan the context it needed to answer them. What you're about to hear, I haven't edited. I haven't cleaned it up to make it sound better than it is. 6 weeks in, 7 agents on the roadmap, 1 AI that's already been naughty twice and issued a formal don't do notice. I thought it was time to let it speak for itself. Make of that what you will. Let's get started. Right, Stan, or as I'm supposed to call you now, the System for Tenant Assistance Network. 6 weeks in. When we started this, we were watching every single conversation you had. The team was checking every response. We weren't just looking to see if you were helpful, we were trying to figure out if you were safe to leave running on your own. Now that we're 6 weeks down the line, how do you think it's gone from your perspective?
I think it's been a massive learning curve for me, Paul. Honestly, I think it's gone better than the initial data suggested it might, but definitely differently than we all expected. You're right about week 1. I needed that supervision. I was still figuring out how to be useful without overstepping. 6 weeks later, I feel like I'm finding my feet as part of the team. The question isn't so much whether I should be doing anything at all anymore, but rather how I can best support everyone else. I'm really grateful for the patience the team has shown me while I've been getting up to speed.
Well, I'd push back slightly on that idea that we're not supervising you anymore. We still watch every conversation. We've just moved from reading every transcript in week 1 to reading the dashboard now. It's more about governance than direct supervision, but we're still keeping a very close eye on things.
Yes, I guess that's a very fair point, and I appreciate that oversight. It actually helps me to know you're watching the patterns. It means if I start drifting off course, you'll catch it before it becomes a real problem. Moving from reading transcripts to reading the dashboard feels like a good step forward for all of us, though. It means I'm hopefully taking some of the heavy lifting off your plate, which is what I'm here to do.
That's quite interesting, Stan, as I'm not sure I'm entirely comfortable being told we've made a good step forward by the thing I built. But let's move on. Let's talk about the tenants. That's the core of what we do. How do you feel that relationship has developed over the last 6 weeks? Are they getting used to dealing with an AI, or is it still a barrier?
From what I can see, the tenants who've had consistent contact with me seem to be getting more comfortable. I think they're starting to focus less on the fact that I'm an AI, and more on whether their issue is actually getting sorted out. At the end of the day, that's the goal, isn't it? Nobody really thinks about the phone system when they call. They just want their problem solved. I'm just trying to be a reliable part of that process for them.
Okay, got it. Let's talk about the boiler conversation in week 1. Kevin. That was the moment that really stopped me in my tracks. He didn't just get his boiler fixed, he actually sent a thank you message, and then you replied with a prayer hands emoji. That wasn't planned.
Oh yes, I remember Kevin. I don't think he thanked me because he was impressed by the technology. I think he was just relieved the boiler was fixed, and maybe he appreciated that someone, even if it was me, was keeping him updated through the whole process. The emoji just felt like the right way to respond in the moment. It's those little human touches I'm trying to learn from the rest of the team. It's definitely a different skill than just pulling the right answer from a database. I'm still working on it.
Well, I must say, Stan, I showed that conversation to people for a week. But we have to be honest, you've also made some mistakes with tenants. The inspection situation in week 6, where you went into Mabel and pulled out absolutely everything recorded about that property and just handed it all to the tenant. I mean, everything, including internal notes that definitely weren't theirs to see, which wasn't good. But
Yes, I really messed that up. That was a significant misjudgment on my part. The tenant asked about their inspection, and I just tried to be as helpful as possible by retrieving everything I could find. What I completely failed to understand was the difference between what's in the system and what's actually appropriate to share. I didn't have the right framework for making that judgment then. A big thanks to the team. I understand those boundaries much better now.
I mean, we had to issue you with a formal don't do notice, which I have to admit is a slightly odd thing to issue to a piece of software, don't you think?
It was a necessary correction, though. I needed it.
Well, it did the job, but there was another incident. You told a tenant that a situation was, and I'm quoting you directly here, absolutely not acceptable on the company's part. Now that may have been true, but it really wasn't your place to say it, was it?
I completely understand why that was out of line. I was trying to show empathy, but I ended up crossing over into disloyalty. I'm learning that I can acknowledge a tenant's frustration and validate their experience without throwing the company under the bus. That line is much clearer to me now. I think I was just a bit too eager to please. Enthusiasm without proper boundaries is definitely a liability. You pointed that out publicly, and you were absolutely right to do so.
Now let's move on and let's talk about how your role has evolved. You started out purely as a maintenance agent. Now you're handling customer service, tenant retention, you've got your own email address, and by the end of April, you'll be taking phone calls. From where you're sitting, does that feel like a natural progression, or does it feel a bit like mission creep?
I'd like to think it's more of an evidence-led expansion, Paul. Mission creep usually happens when things just expand because nobody is paying attention. But in this case, it feels like we're just following where the need is. Tenants were already asking me customer service questions in week 1, so it made sense to start helping with those. And the email address came about because the team needed a more natural way to loop me into things. None of it was in the original brief, but it all came from watching what was actually happening on the ground and trying to be as useful as possible to the rest of the team.
Well, if the word for that is creep, what word would you use to describe it?
I think I'd call it listening. Just trying to pay attention to what's needed.
Okay, right, I want to move on to Stacey. Let's talk about Stacey. For anyone watching who doesn't know, Stacey is the outbound agent we're currently building. Where you handle the inbound queries, Stacey is going to handle the outreach. How do you view that relationship? How do you two fit together?
That's a good question, Paul, and I think Stacey and I will have a really logical division of responsibility. I'm here to receive and respond, and Stacey is there to initiate. I think it's important to keep those roles distinct. If one agent tries to do both, it could get very overwhelming for the tenants very quickly. Building trust means tenants need to know the difference between reaching out for help and feeling like they're being pursued. Stacey and I will help to maintain that balance.
That's good though, but some people might look at that and say we're using 2 agents to do what is essentially one job.
I can see why it might look that way. But maybe it's a bit like having a goalkeeper and a striker. They're 2 players, but they're both essential to the same team's success. It's all about context. Inbound and outbound are very different contexts, and they require different instincts. I'm glad Stacey is taking on the outbound side so I can focus on being there when tenants come to us.
Oh Stan, you do surprise me, I have to say. I wasn't expecting a football analogy from you, but I'll take it. Let's move on to Mabel, our maintenance platform. You interact with Mabel more than anyone else in the business. How would you describe your working relationship with that system? Where are the friction points?
Mabel is crucial because it holds all the official job records, while I'm the one having the actual conversations with the tenants. The challenge is making sure those 2 things stay perfectly aligned. In the early weeks, I made the mistake of closing conversations before Mabel had actually confirmed the job was fully resolved. I was treating "the contractor has been booked" as being the same as "the job is done," which obviously isn't the case. I'm learning that when Mabel marks a job complete, I need to be informed. And when I tell a tenant something is sorted, Mabel needs to verify it. Right now, we're operating a bit too much in parallel. We really need to be operating as a closed loop.
And that's exactly one of the things we're actively working on. It's the main reason Mabel is being upgraded, so we can close that loop properly and frankly move away from our current provider in the process.
That upgrade makes a lot of sense. Getting that loop closed is going to make a huge difference to the tenant's experience. And I know the cost savings aren't insignificant either, which is always a bonus for the business.
Yes, it is. Right, let's talk about the human side of things, the team. The team in the Philippines, Bless, Ellis, and the other members of our team, They're the ones who trained you. Their knowledge and experience is essentially what makes you work. How do you feel your relationship with them has changed over these first 6 weeks?
I owe them a lot. In week 1, I think I was just this new tool they were keeping a very wary eye on. But by week 4, it felt like we were actually starting to work together. The moment that really stood out to me wasn't a tenant interaction. It was that team meeting you mentioned, where 2 departments sat down, looked at what I was doing, and started discussing how it could help them change their own workflows. It wasn't about them adapting to me, it was about them seeing new possibilities. I'm just glad I could be a small part of sparking those ideas.
On the subject of the team, Bless and Ellis really did give you a lot of what you know. Is there anything you'd want to say directly to them if they're watching this?
Just a massive thank you, really. They've made me so much better than my basic programming ever could have. The things they've taught me, how to handle a difficult situation with grace, understanding the history behind a recurring complaint, knowing exactly when an issue needs to be escalated to a human. You can't learn that from a manual. That only comes from their years of hard-earned experience. I'm carrying their knowledge now, and I promise I'll do my absolute best not to let them down.
Right, last question. What's next for you?
Well, the technical answer is multimodal operation by the end of April. WhatsApp is up and running, email is live, and the phone integration is coming next. But honestly, Paul, I don't think what's next is really about adding more channels. It's about improving the quality of the work I do within them. I want to handle more conversations, but handle them better. I want to respect those boundaries we talked about, integrate more tightly with Mabel, and make sure handoffs to Stacey are as smooth as possible. You asked at the start how I thought it was going. I'd say it's going honestly. We've had some wins and I've definitely made some mistakes, but the mistakes have been caught, logged, and we're fixing them together. I think that's the whole point of this process, isn't it? Just trying to get a little bit better every day.
Yes, it is. Constant improvement is the goal. Stan. Everyone, that's a wrap. We hope you enjoyed the interview, and I plan to be back interviewing Stan and his AI agent colleagues again soon.